Today on Rebel Then King, let's talk about just how popular or unpopular Pathfinder 2nd Edition really is. Welcome, adventurers. Let's be honest, leave me a comment. Can you actually say Pathfinder 2nd Edition to someone who isn't a hardcore gamer and see anything other than a look of confusion on their face? I sure can't. Still, in late 2025, I have to explain what the game is to every single family member, friend, or coworker that I am talking to. There was a somewhat recent article, multiple actually, about how D&D is in its stadium era, just selling out huge shows. There was no mention of Pathfinder 2nd Edition anywhere to be found in that. And this video is somewhat of a response to posts we tend to see in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition subreddit a few times a year that sort of ask if we think we see growth, and we talk about content creators in this space. These are good conversations to have, but the fact that we are having them and that they keep coming up every few months sort of shows that we're not maybe growing as fast as we would like. But maybe that's going to change. Maybe it's going to get worse. Here are my thoughts, mostly from the perspective of a content creator in this space. Let me know in the comments where you see this game headed. We're going to start off with, frankly, all the things that I think make growth in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, at least from a content creator's perspective, a bit tough. Starting with, I think we have a little bit more difficult scripts generally. I do see some D&D content. It mostly seems like just vibes to me. I mean, I think there's some rules and stuff out there, but I haven't seen lots of charts or numbers or proficiencies or bonuses, etc. in D&D content. No fact checking, just sort of vibes. Meanwhile, when you are making a Pathfinder 2nd Edition script, there is a lot of double checking that go into, going over your sources that really does bog down the process. It makes it difficult to turn out a lot of content. At one point, I was doing so many math-heavy videos, I actually started getting ads for private math tutoring when viewing other videos. That's how much can go into making fun content for this game. And I don't know, it just really is difficult to talk about the rules, more so than you might think. I have so many notes and so many things that I am double checking and second guessing that my mind is often racing when doing these videos. And when you consider the remaster and how so many things got renamed, I'm trying to keep that straight as well. It feels a lot like in the early stages or even medium stages of learning a second language, where you just kind of keep talking and you hope the right word finds its way into your mouth, and sometimes it just doesn't. Another thing that I think is a little difficult from a content creator's perspective, and I think makes the game a bit more challenged, let's say, in the growth perspective, is we have a pretty demanding audience, okay? If the math is wrong or a rule is misinterpreted, you will hear about it. In those D&D videos I referenced, I mean, if you're not discussing math or discussing a rule, you can't be wrong about them. If it's just vibes, there's nothing to fact check. I've also found that even when the creator or the original poster or whoever it might be right, there tends to be some negative sentiment going on. I still see arguments about using reactions before your first turn, for example, and people get heated about this. The purpose of this video isn't to rehash that, but let's just say, the text does say the GM determines whether you can use reactions before your first turn begins, depending on the situation when the encounter happens. So there are hardliners who say you always get reactions before your first turn, and some people who say never, and the truth is in between. Let's just say there is a lot of litigation that goes in Pathfinder 2e content. Frankly, there have been new channels that I've seen popped up, or even established channels, who take a step back from Pathfinder 2nd Edition due to this constant kind of negative litigation that goes on. All of this means that we have a relatively small but very highly engaged audience. We demand a lot, we say a lot. The comments on my videos and that I see on Reddit are very impressive to me because they're very detailed and very lengthy. So 75 comments or so on a Pathfinder thread or a Pathfinder video takes a while to read, but 75 comments on other videos in totally different or sometimes other gaming genres I see, it's a lot of very short comments. I don't work at YouTube. I can't say exactly what the algorithm says, but I'm guessing that more smaller comments are better for the algorithm than a bunch of large comments, because that indicates more people coming and engaging and possibly returning to respond to something versus someone kind of going and here's my big spiel and then I'm out. So I do think that the way that we like to interact with each other in the community actually does inhibit growth outside of the community. These longer, detailed posts and discussions don't drive the overall audience engagement and, algorithmic results that I think some other spaces have. So it's an example of we're getting what we want, but it's not helping that content, the game, get to others. And a very similar point to that, the algorithm certainly says that shorter, snappier videos are going to do better. That is sort of our attention spans are going down. Shorts are the new thing. But I think that a lot of Pathfinder 2nd Edition players really enjoy the longer presentation style videos. We do see those, be pretty successful. But I think this is another case of what is good for the community itself is actually bad at growing outside of the community. That does mean that we might not see as much growth as we would want to. As far as growth amongst creators, well, when I first started getting into Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I watched a lot of Crunch McDabble's, Collective Arcana, No-Nats, Knights of Last Call, Local Disaster Tour Guide, and Rules Lawyer, I would say that were the big ones. And, of those channels, Crunch and Collective Arcana have pretty much all but completely stopped making content. Local Disaster Tour Guide and Rules Lawyer have had to step back and slow down due to life and world circumstances. And Knights of Last Call and No-Nats have mostly pivoted content. They return every now and then, but I would no longer consider either of those channels Pathfinder 2nd Edition content creators. And of course, after I film this, I see that No-Nat is indeed releasing 1 or 2 new Pathfinder videos every day in November, so egg on my face. And new channels, of course, have popped up. Pathfinder Pals, who made several great videos and then stopped. Caleb Harrington, who still made one video only, even though it was very well received. And then we do have some new big players in the game, Thraben U, Swing Ripper, Mathfinder. And yes, of course, there are also others, Wisdom Check and Time to Dice and Cyprime and King Ungatantan and Lex and Captain TTRPG. More that I'm probably missing. Leave comments, if there's another creator that I didn't mention. I know there are more, I should have written it all out. But leave a comment about other creators that you think I should check out, because I do enjoy looking at other people's content. It's something I still like to do. But honestly, the point I'm getting at here is it still feels to me like the space loses as many creators as it gains and is sort of staying the same size. And on the note of losing creators, one thing that I think is a relatively big announcement and a detriment to Pathfinder 2nd Edition from the last few months is that the Glass Cannon Network announced that their new flagship campaign is going to use Shadow Dark rather than Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, say what you will about Glass Cannon, about the way they ran the game, but to me, they were the biggest, best, most broad appeal actual play out there, a good balance of comedy, which I know some people didn't like the banter because you want to get straight to the game, but I think that was the podcast that I could point people to if they didn't know the game and people could still enjoy it. There are others, and again, leave some recommendations in the comments. I do also listen to Find the Path Presents, and like I said, I did go through all of Knights of Last Call's Pathfinder content, but the thing is, a huge reason for the rise in the popularity of D&D is Critical Role and other, big actual plays. So not having a big, broad appeal actual play for Pathfinder isn't a good thing. But there are signs for hope, of course. The subreddit, this channel, other channels do seem to be growing. Maybe only about as fast as general inflation or population growth, but hey, that's some growth still. I will say, though, that my most popular short video so far was, because a lot of people thought it was Magic the Gathering because I said Commander. So what can be done about this? Well, first of all, I say introduce the game to as many people as you can. Whether they are experienced TTRPG players or not, I've actually had great fun running one-shots with people who were completely new to TTRPGs, and they had a great time. You can support content creators. I am a firm believer that a rising tide, raises all boats. So support anybody. I do have a membership option if you want to support me a little bit more. I do have some early access to some content, and I'm going to do a bonus companion video where I dig into my viewership numbers and income, and I talk about the sort of overall economics of making content for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And of course, the constant, reminders of leave comments, subscribe, all of that kind of stuff, and go out and subscribe to other creators as well. And remember to check out my community project where we are ranking all of the classes in the system together. I will make sure to have a link to that video as well as a link to the voting website. We've got, as of filming this, I think just shy of 400 votes, which is pretty encouraging. And remember to check out my other project, classfinder2e.com. Another video, another link for that one as well. This is a site I recently launched that should be a good intro to this system, or at least to the character options for new players. I'm really hoping that these sort of community-focused projects like this serve as a launchpad for people who are entering the system, regardless of their entry point. And let me know in the comments if you have other thoughts on what we could do to grow this game. What can I do? What can other content creators do? Until then, remember that if Pathfinder 2nd Edition does blow up, you can tell everyone you were into it way before it was cool, because I wouldn't necessarily call it the cool kid on the block right now.